Today we find ourselves in the Piazza San Ignazio in Rome. The Trevi Fountain is half a mile behind us. The Pantheon is a quarter mile down the Via di Seminario to our right. The Victor Emmanuel Monument is half a mile ahead of us to the left. So we are very much in the center of Rome. Before us at this early hour we see the facade of the Church of St. Ignatius, built between 1626 and 1650, which served originally as the chapel of the Roman College, located just behind it. The college was opened in 1551, 11 years after the founding of the society. In 1584, the college moved to another location in Rome as the Pontifical Gregorian University, which stands today. The model for the Church of St. Ignatius is the Church of the Jesuit, about a half a mile just ahead of us to the right, built in the 1550s when Ignatius was still alive. Its Baroque style was widely copied by Jesuit churches for centuries. The Jesuit houses Ignatius's rooms. It housed superiors general of the society until the suppression of the society in 1773, and it now houses Ignatius's remains as well as those of other superiors general, including Pedro Arrupe. As we move forward and into the Via di Seminario, we will visit the Collegio San Bellarmino. It is not actually a college, but a former palazzo that has become a Jesuit residence, housing about 80 men, one of several such residences in the city for Jesuits studying at the Gregorian and elsewhere. Our little visit here today poses us a number of human questions. First, how do we not only remember, but also feel some kind of contact with people important to us who lived before us? We can create memorials like this church, or treat particular places as a kind of memorial. We've all probably visited a childhood home that may seem much smaller to our adult eyes than they remain in our memories. When a childhood home is demolished, something can seem lost in our experience. My paternal grandparents' childhood home became many years later a parking lot for a hospital. My father and his brother mourned grievously. But visiting the memorial, whether a grand monument or just a simple place, allows us to call to mind people we knew, or events too distant for our personal memory. And that is about all we can do. And yet, simple as it is a great deal nonetheless. Without this exercise, we risk feeling rootless, cut off from our own personal and collective histories. Second, when we plan a trip, we rightly plan to see things. Yet, some of the best experiences of traveling are the personal encounters, sometimes very small and yet large in significance. In my first trip to Rome, a taxi driver asked me if I was an American. I said yes, I was, and then I asked if he was Italian. He became indignant and said, "No, I'm a Roman." It was a brief encounter, but one filled with a meaning and significance that the place itself would not offer. Third, is the place simply something we see and photograph, or do we allow the place to affect us somehow? The Colosseum in Rome remains the largest amphitheater in the world, seating between 65,000 and 80,000 people. To stand in the towering arch of one of its exits, wonderfully called vomitoria in Latin, is to marvel at the architectural prowess of the Romans. And yet, standing here, one also feels how much the prowess is diminished by the slaughter of so many people and beasts in this amphitheater. Given all this, I am always amazed and rather saddened that Christianity has memorialized so poorly and so inappropriately the most important location of our faith, the place where Jesus was crucified and then buried. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is no single church, but rather a battleground among Christian denominations for control of the narrative. An 18th century visitor from Britain returned home, saying that the church confirmed the message of the angels, "He is not here." One might ask, why a church at all? The Garden of Gethsemane includes a church, but it is still a simple olive grove one can visit, be seated, and encounter our past, which is also our present. The place and our memorials do all the work, after all, since the Holy Spirit provides the inspiration to our faith. After all, our desires for memorials, monuments, grand churches, and vast coliseum, though all expressions of great human desires, cannot bring us the deep rootedness, the deep sense of meaning and value, the deep enrichment of life and being that all human beings desire. These realities come only through our deep engagement with the Lord of life. We may all pray with the author of the letter to the Ephesians, that we may be strengthened in our inner beings with power through God's Spirit, that Christ may dwell in our hearts through faith, as we become increasingly rooted and grounded in God's love. And in particular, as we come to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, as we are filled with all the fullness of God.